Boris Johnson like? What's the guy actually like behind the politician? As he braces himself for another torrid time at the dispatch box during today's Prime Minister's questions, many people are wondering what drives him to cling on so tightly to power after only narrowly surviving that attempt by Tory rebels to get rid of him.
Well, one person who knows is his former girlfriend, who says she believes he'll never resign. He'd have to be pushed out of office. Journalist and author Petronella Wyatt worked with Boris Johnson at The Spectator magazine. The pair had a 4-year relationship, and she describes the Prime Minister as a wounded beast and believes he will lose another vote of confidence if one is held in the autumn. Petronella, it's lovely to meet you and to talk to you.
Lovely to meet you.
We were just talking there about the fact that this is a kind of chaos that Boris Johnson appears to be operating in right now. 148 of his own MPs have zero confidence in him. And I wondered whether he sort of rather enjoyed that.
No. First of all, he doesn't enjoy it when people dislike him or don't have faith in the Johnson product. And secondly, he only enjoys chaos when it's of his own making and he can control it. He can't control this.
Are you saying he's thin-skinned?
He's surprisingly thin-skinned, really? Yes.
So
surprisingly sensitive.
So
easily upset by criticism or the thought that people dislike him. Sorry, go on.
No, not at all. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've never met you before, so I'm not familiar with your speech patterns, but we'll get there quickly. So he's not toughing... He's toughing it out in public, but in private, will his head be in his hands?
I would imagine so, yes. Yeah. No, I think he has a very soft core, and I think this would be absolute hell for him in private. I don't think he's just sitting down with a stiff drink and feeling, well, you know, everything will be all right, I'll tough it out. He's a bit of an enigma, and I think people have the wrong impression of him. They think he's a kind of hard shell and a hard man, when actually he's surprisingly vulnerable.
You sound like you have a soft spot for him still.
I think everybody who was friends with Boris or who knows Boris does, because it's very hard not to be fond of him, because his instincts are basically decent. But I think the problem is he's his own worst enemy. And he's very much a people pleaser, which leads to all sorts of problems in government, because he makes promises he can't keep. He makes enemies of MPs. And, you know, while you can sort of do that kind of thing in your personal life, it catches up with you in politics.
Well, what do you think about the repeated accusations by many who either know him or observe him that he is a serial liar? We know that he lied about his affair with you, which lasted for 4 years, because he got sacked for lying to his boss about it. He said it was an inverted pyramid of piffle, but it was true. And you can understand him denying an affair. That's people do. But he got sacked for that, and he got sacked for making up quotes when he was a columnist on The Times. He completely made up quotes from his godfather. Got the chop for that. In your 4 years with him, did he lie to you, or did you see him lying to other people? I mean, well, in an unusually frequent way.
Well, I'm not going to talk about our personal friendship, but does he lie? I don't think he ever intends to. I think he lies to get out of difficult situations at work, and then he sort of he promises people things. I mean, he promised people things at The Spectator, then they didn't happen. Then people get angry, and it's a sort of a shortcut that doesn't really work in the long term.
Lies of convenience, really.
Well, yes, because he hates confrontation. He hates rows. He doesn't like telling people anything unpleasant. I don't believe he ever sacked anyone when I was a deputy head. I'm sure if anyone was sacked, somebody else would have had to do it. But the thing is, in politics, you have to be more grown up about it, and you have to grit your teeth in the way that Margaret Thatcher did, and John Major, and Blair, and even Theresa May. I think it's... I think his qualities are very endearing, but they're not necessarily the qualities of a great Prime Minister.
Well, one of the things is that people wonder, there's no doubt that he was very popular at the height of his political power. You know, he won mayoralty of London twice. He got this astonishing majority in the 2019 general election. But people wonder now, as he's losing popularity, as you say, amongst those sort of close to him, those MPs in particular, does he have principles that will endure beyond a shallow popularity? Because it's all very well for people to like you or love you, but when they perhaps stop liking you, you need to have something else that's going to keep the electorate voting for you.
Yes, this is the problem, because you don't have to be liked to be a successful Prime Minister.
Exactly.
Like Margaret Thatcher. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, who I knew a bit, she was a woman with a mission. She wanted to change the country.
She was very clear in her direction,
she was terribly
wasn't
clear.
she? And she had very strong principles.
Yes, and that upholds you even when you're unpopular, and people go on respecting you, and the electorate go on voting for you. The trouble with Boris is that he wanted to become Prime Minister, but when he became Prime Minister, didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't... He's not a conviction politician.
No.
He didn't become Prime Minister and announce, you know, a great reform of education or...
No, it was getting Brexit done, wasn't it? That was the main point.
Yes, but once Brexit's done, it's done. It was going to be done anyway. Theresa May was unlucky.
So, Petronella, what did you... You were together for 4 years. Presumably, in that period, you loved him. Two questions, really.
You're very presumptuous.
Well, you were together for 4... I assume you weren't with him because you hated him. You know, it's not presumptuous, it's common sense. So you were there for 4 years with him. You know him intimately, as I say. Two questions, really. One, what would you say is most lovable about Boris? And two, what did you think the day you heard he was Prime Minister? Did you think it would all end in tears? But let's do the first question first. What's lovable about him?
He's instinctively good-natured. And he's funny. He's generally funny, and he's witty, and he's well-read. And he's got charm. Those are all lovable qualities.
Yes. And what did you think?
And warmth.
And what did you think when you'd heard he was going to be Prime Minister?
I thought, wrong job. Wrong job for Boris. I actually did predict that it wouldn't end well. Because the qualities that made him a very good journalist and also a kind of TV personality are not the qualities you need in a Prime Minister, because it's a hard slog. And he never liked detail. And the other thing is that I wouldn't say he was lazy, but being PM does involve a 14-hour day, which isn't really him.
How many hours a day does he work normally?
I can't remember, but not 14. Not 14. and he gets bored with things quite quickly as well. What's
with the tousled hair? I've heard many reports from television makeup artists say that they comb his hair for him, and the moment they're gone, he roughs it up again. What's going on there?
Well, perhaps it's part of his... It's part of his political armour, I imagine.
If he wasn't married, if he was single, and if you weren't involved with anybody, could you ever see yourself going out with him?
Well, I'm not going to answer something like that.
You don't have to answer.
I might be engaged already. I'm not answering that.
What do you think is going to happen to him? Do you think that there is enough strength of feeling against him still on the backbenches that someone will go to the 1922 committee and say, we need to change the rules because we cannot limp on?
Well, what it boils down to is winning the next election. All Tory MPs really care about is keeping their seats. I think Boris is now seen as a liability. And this is because grassroots Tories, 6 out of 10, want him to go. And I think it's that more than anything else, more than lying or allegations of lying, that is going to dog it, because Tory MPs I've been speaking to are terrified. I mean, there's one thing he can do. He needs a vote-winning policy, which is tax cutting. And there have been rumours coming out of Number 10 that Rishi is going to be reshuffled and somebody else who is bolder, because Rishi is very, very careful, will be put in his place to cut taxes. Because it really has to be something that's incredibly vote-pleasing and appeals to core Tory voters.
Just going back to the, I suppose I could describe it as the politics of the personal. What I've got from you in the last 10 minutes is that you actually feel quite sorry for him.
Yes, of course I feel sorry for him. He's in a horrible position. Even if I didn't know him, you'd feel... He's on the ropes. Of course I feel sorry.
And if he does get booted out in the next few months, and a lot of betting is on that he'll be gone by October, November, do you think actually, perversely, it'll make him happier?
In the long run, yes. In the short run, no, but in the long run, I think so, because I think his forte is in writing and the media, and his life will quieten down. You won't see it like that for a long time.
How does he take failure?
The way we all take it, badly. How do you take it?
Badly.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it would be unhealthy if he took it well, but... no, I mean, it's terrible to fail in public.
Yeah.
I mean, it nearly killed Margaret Thatcher. I mean, it was awful for her. You remember her tears.
She cried when she left, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's torture to fail as Prime Minister and do it in public.
His great hero, Winston Churchill, of course, said that the definition of success is to go from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. So I suppose he could channel that. And
sure, but even Winston Churchill was pretty upset about losing the election to Labour.
The thing is, I just want to reflect something that Rob Beckett, the comedian, said to us yesterday, which is that nobody's forced into this position. He wasn't forced to be Prime Minister. It's not jury service. I think you're remarkably generous to feel so sorry for him when, you know, and I know you defend his instincts as being decent, but, you know, he didn't have to be at gatherings at Downing Street. He didn't have to be Prime Minister.
That's perfectly true. I don't know what you mean by he didn't have to be Prime Minister, though.
Well, he didn't have to stand to be Prime Minister. Didn't have to lead the party.
Why is that relevant?
Because you said you feel sorry for him.
I feel sorry...
Like he had to do this.
I feel sorry for people in the public eye who are likely to be crucified in the public eye.
But they can behave differently so that they don't end up in that situation.
I mean, this is a mess of his own making.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the architect of his own downfall.
Yes, I mean, he's always been his own worst enemy. These are unforced errors. They could easily have been avoided. Yeah. Why does he give the parties? Well, allow them because he's too weak to say no.
Which is probably not a great quality in a Prime Minister.
No, I agree. I mean, I've said his qualities, personal qualities, are endearing, but they're not necessarily those of a Prime Minister.
Well, what I take from this interview is when I asked you what you thought when you became Prime Minister, your answer was devastatingly frank. He's in the wrong job.
I know.
Wrong guy, wrong job.
Nobody believed me. Nobody believed me.
And can he win the next election in charge?
No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, it's so interesting and fascinating to talk to you, Petronella. Thank you very much
so much
indeed
for coming
for joining
in.
us.
Not at all.
Really good to
Great
talk to you.
pleasure.
Thank you. And it was for us too.